The director of the CIA just secretly flew to Moscow. No press release, no advance notice, no explanation. He met with Vladimir Putin himself and with Russia's top intelligence chief, and then he vanished back out of the country before anyone even knew he'd landed. And I need you to understand something right now. Intelligence chiefs do not take unannounced flights to meet hostile foreign heads of state for small talk. Something is happening. And by the end of this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what I think it is and why I think the corporate media is deliberately burying this story. If you're new here, subscribe, because this channel is the one place that's actually going to connect the dots for you instead of feeding you talking points. Now here's what we know. CIA Director John Ratcliffe flew from Riga, Latvia into Russia. He was there for a matter of hours. Short trip, in and out. But in that short window, he reportedly met with the head of Russian intelligence, and this is the part that should stop you in your tracks, with Vladimir Putin directly. No advance leak, no confirmation from Moscow, no statement from Washington. Silence on both sides. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you heard about America's top spy quietly slipping into Russia, sitting down with Putin, and both governments agreeing to just say nothing? That's not an accident. That's operational security. That's two governments who both have very specific reasons for wanting this conversation to stay off the record. So the real question isn't, did this happen? It happened. The question is, what was on the table? While the CIA director was making his mystery trip, something else was happening that the media conveniently is not connecting to it. Iran's foreign minister sat down with Oman's foreign minister, and afterward Oman's top diplomat came out publicly saying there had been serious, productive discussion about control of the Strait of Hormuz, and that results are expected soon. At the same time, Pakistan's army chief and interior minister had just wrapped up their own meetings in Iran and flown home. And the speculation swirling around Washington right now is that Pakistan's military chief may have been used as a back-channel messenger carrying an offer from the Trump administration to Tehran. Reopen the Strait of Hormuz and the US will lift both the blockade and the sanctions. Let's think about the timing here. Back-channel diplomacy through Pakistan, public diplomacy through Oman, and then, in the middle of it all, America's spy chief makes an unannounced trip to sit down with Putin. That is not a coincidence. That is a coordinated pressure campaign, and Moscow is very clearly part of the equation. Now let's go through the theories, because nobody has confirmed anything, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but here's what's plausible. Theory 1. Ratcliffe went to try to move the needle on ending the Russia-Ukraine war. Ratcliffe is widely understood to be one of the strongest pro-Ukraine voices inside the current administration. And here's the danger nobody's saying out loud. Ukraine has been landing strikes deep inside Russian territory that experts believe would not be possible without Western assistance. Russia has openly signaled that if these attacks continue, it may strike NATO countries supporting Ukraine. If that happens, the United States is treaty bound to respond. That is how regional conflicts become world wars. The first two world wars both started in Europe. Sit with that for a second. Theory 2, and I think this is the more likely one. The visit was about applying pressure on Iran. Now here's why this matters. Russia and China have both refused to honor the new US sanctions on Iran. China came out and rejected them outright. And if you look at the Financial Times list of entities actually being targeted by these sanctions, China isn't even on it. Why? Because sanctioning China directly would let Beijing choke America's own supply chains. Meanwhile, Iran's trade with Russia flows through the Caspian Sea and overland rail routes, areas the US blockade cannot touch. So it's entirely plausible Ratcliffe offered Moscow concessions on Ukraine in exchange for Russia applying pressure on Tehran. Theory 3, the one people don't want to say out loud, that this was about a limited strike option against Iran's nuclear program. I'll be straight with you. I think this is the least likely explanation, and here's why. Reports out of Israel's outlets suggest Secretary of State Marco Rubio privately told associates that the U.S. will not strike Iran before the midterm elections. And that tracks. The midterms are enormous for Trump politically, and a new war heating up right before Americans vote would be politically catastrophic for him. He's already dealing with historic disapproval numbers. So, barring Israel deliberately sabotaging the Oman-Iran negotiations, which, by the way, Oman's foreign minister has publicly warned could happen again, referencing past interference, the working assumption is no major war before November. But here's the catch. If Trump loses the midterms, this could still spiral. And if he wins, some analysts believe that's when the real military option comes back on the table. Now, let's talk about something the mainstream media really doesn't want you thinking about. Who's actually profiting from all of this? While ordinary countries across the Middle East are absorbing devastating economic losses from their standoff, American oil companies are sitting on record reserves, helped along by the effective removal of Venezuelan oil and Russian oil from the global market. Middle Eastern oil isn't fully flowing either. So who's left selling? American companies. And Trump himself holds substantial interest in American oil companies. Senator Chris Van Hollen has publicly accused the administration of profiting off this conflict through market manipulation. Whether or not that's fully true, the optics are brutal, and if that narrative gains traction, it becomes a genuine midterm liability. Meanwhile, NBC News has reported, and Middle Eastern outlets have echoed, that Iranian missile and drone strikes caused what U.S. intelligence sources describe as one of the most significant blows to American intelligence infrastructure in the region in recent memory, striking assets across 7 countries and more than 100 sites. The American Enterprise Institute estimates rebuilding costs alone could exceed $5 billion. This is not a war America is walking away from unscathed. Both sides are bleeding, and both sides know it. Trump has publicly claimed Iran's economy is collapsing so badly it can't even pay its soldiers. But let's use our brains for a second. Iran has survived under sanctions for nearly 5 decades. The regime hasn't collapsed under 50 years of pressure. And there's no serious evidence that a few more months of sanctions is the thing that finally breaks it. If anything, the reporting suggests Iran has spent this period building alternative trade routes through Russia and Central Asia that the US simply cannot touch. And here's the bottom line. A secret meeting between Americans' top spy and Vladimir Putin, a back channel through Pakistan, quiet diplomacy through Oman, billions in unreported losses on both sides, and a president who cannot afford a new war before November, but might not be able to avoid one either. Nobody is telling you the full story, because nobody actually has it, including me. But I'm going to keep digging, and I'm going to keep bringing it to you straight without a spin. If you want to actually understand what's happening in the world instead of being told what to think about it, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.